Hello and welcome and thanks for coming. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dakota Nicely. I'm a firefighter paramedic here with Adamsville Fire Department. I'm going to talk to you a little bit tonight about thermal imaging cameras, how they work, also some common dangers that are associated with their use. Firefighters can become killed or trapped and also perform ineffective searches because they get complacent with thermal imaging cameras. So we're going to talk a little bit about some basic types of heat transfer first. So there's three major types of heat transfer. Does anybody know what those are? First type is conduction. It's where you have a solid object which is heated, and that object transfers heat throughout. Be much like a skillet on top of your stove. The skillet's heated, in turn, it cooks your food. You're not applying the heat directly to the food, it's moving through the skillet. The next method is by convection, much like a convection oven. It's where air is heated and then the heat is carried through the air. An example of this would be like steam. The next method, the last one here, and probably the most important in terms of what we're talking about here tonight, is radiation. And it is literally heat carried in the form of radiation. So here you can see a candle and radiating heat onto the hand. An example of this would be a bonfire, and having the fire maybe 5 or 10 feet away from you, but you can still feel the heat off of it even though you're not right up against it. What you're feeling is the radiant heat. So we're going to talk a little bit about thermal imagers. Radiant heat is the only heat that a thermal imager can see. It cannot see hot air, and it cannot see heat moving through an object. It can only see the radiant heat coming off of the object. So what are some pros of a thermal imaging camera? Some pros is it allows us to do a quicker search. It allows us to get a sneak peek of the room, since it only sees heat, whereas a normal smoky room, you can see right through that smoke and see the entire room. So it allows for a quicker search. It allows us to, quote, see through the smoke. And it also helps us with overhaul, to look for hot spots. Look for that heat that you can't see. So those are some pros. I want to talk a little bit about the cons tonight, though. A lot of people are trained in the use of thermal imagers, but not made aware of the downfalls or the dangers associated with that. One of the most common dangers is complacency. People become complacent because they feel like they can see. Where an imager will allow you to look into a room even though you couldn't see in that room without it. It allows you to see the room, and people become reliant upon those. The issue with that is if the battery dies, if the camera malfunctions and quits working, you can then become easily trapped, disoriented. Another common problem is misinterpretation of the image itself on the camera, being improperly trained. It's very easy to misinterpret an image, which could get you lost or disoriented, or it's very easy to overlook objects such as a victim inside a fire. If that victim's covered up by a blanket, you will only see that blanket. You cannot see through objects with an imager. So people tend to get complacent and not do a hands-on search, and may overlook a victim in that case. As I said before, a common problem with the misinterpretation of the image is disorientation. Firefighters are taught to remember their turns, remember their corners, to remain oriented within a building. Some people, though, with an imager, feel as though that since they can see, they don't need to do that. And if the thermal imaging camera then becomes disabled, they can easily become lost and not be able to call an effective mayday because they don't remember where they're at. So I'm going to show you some images here, some common problems, and demonstrate a little bit about what I'm talking about. Here you can see an exhaust coming off of one of the fire trucks out in the bay. The truck is running, it's blowing hot air onto the floor. On these images, darker colors are cooler and brighter colors are warmer. So you can see here you have the exhaust, it's kind of bright, it's heating up. You can see this is the floor. You can see how it's becoming white. The exhaust is heating up the floor. Okay, so you're seeing the radiant heat coming off the floor as it becomes warmed up. What you can't see is the airflow, the convection of the hot air coming out of the exhaust onto the floor. So that's just a demonstration of only being able to see the radiant heat. So here you can see, what you're seeing is my reflection. That's me holding the thermal imaging camera. And I am looking into a window. So you can see my heat coming off of my body, reflecting off of the window, bouncing back, and that's what the camera sees, is my heat reflecting off of that window. Good example here. If you don't know this, if you haven't been trained on this, you've missed a big issue here. A lot of people think that they can look through a window, search a room, and that they can clear a room that way without ever going into it. The problem is, on the other side of this window is a person. This thermal imager cannot see through objects, not even a window. Although we can see through it with our eyes, it can't see heat on the other side of that window. Here you can see the outline of a person. You can see the heat signature coming off of that person. What you're actually looking at here is a reflection off of diamond plate. Again, reflections can become disorienting, where you think there may be something. It may be a reflection from clear across the room. Again, here it looks like you're looking at two people. It looks like you're looking, if you look real close, you can almost see the background of the room. But what you're actually looking at is a reflection of this dry erase board right here, and you're seeing the reflection of the rest of the room. So where you may think by looking through the camera that the room goes this way, when actually the whole room is behind you. Here's a doorway. What I want to show here is, remember that this camera cannot see convection, the movement of hot air. So you may be wanting to make entry through that doorway, but what you can't see is the 600, 700, 800 degree air that's moving under this door from the fire. The only thing that you would eventually be able to see is where that air is heating up the frame itself. So the issue with that is there may be harsh conditions, possibly near flashover conditions in that room, and unless there's actually flames whipping around here, you can't see those. So it's very important not to become reliant solely upon the camera. So, in conclusion, if used effectively, thermal imaging cameras can be a great aid. They can allow us to do our job more effectively, and they are important in saving lives. They can also help with overhaul, making sure that you've hit all the hot spots, hopefully avoiding a rekindle of that fire. But if used ineffectively, as you can see, it can be very dangerous. Can allow one to be disoriented and get complacent and do an improper search. Any questions?